but I was in the emergency room, and my son called me and told me what it was like to be intubated. And then Sandy called, and all I could tell her is that I loved her. And that was, I think, my last words to her.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now we're diving into a miraculous true story of survival, faith, and unwavering hope in the face of COVID-19. Patient number one is the name of the book, Embracing Hope in Times of Despair. It is written by two terrific authors. Their names are Sandra and Greg Mundis, and in the book they recount the harrowing journey of Greg becoming the first intubated COVID-19 patient at their local hospital and the global prayer movement that followed. This gripping and inspirational book reminds readers that even in the darkest storms, faith can shine a powerful light. We're delighted to have these very talented authors join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put them on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like them by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing their amazing book. The links are below this interview. Sandra, Greg, thank you both for being with me here today.
Thank you. Such a privilege, really.
It's an honor for us, yeah.
It's an honor for me to have you on the show. I thank God that you guys are okay and you survived this all right. Greg, let's go back to that time, 2020. You're stricken with COVID-19. What happened? It must have been extremely frightening.
Yeah, well, it was such an early case of it because we had visitors from Europe that came. And they had COVID and didn't even know it. And I was chairing a meeting, a nonprofit meeting with the Assemblies of God. And I started getting sick. And I texted my wife, who was entertaining the wives of those members of the board. And I said, hey, I don't feel good. And then I texted her a little later and said, I'm feeling worse. I don't think I'm going to go to the closing dinner. And from there, it's pretty downhill for me. I kind of lost just an awareness of even what was happening to me. I was so sick, Logan, that I couldn't even formulate some sentences.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. We've kind of become numb to COVID-19. Right now, when people get it, it really seems to be not a big deal for most people. But you had what is commonly referred to as the original COVID, which was a killer, where we were seeing stories of people like you for days and days and days, weeks even, on ventilators and so forth, respirators. Sandra, what was it like for you when you saw Greg falling so sick and decisions had to be made and he wasn't up to making the decisions?
It was actually a very weird and difficult time. When he got much worse 3 days later, I had tried, it was the weekend, but I tried calling my primary care doctor. I tried calling the hospital. Could I bring him in? They said, no, you cannot, because COVID is rampant right now, and we don't know if he has it, and don't bring him in. It could get worse. And I said, well, they asked me all the symptoms. He only had one of the typical symptoms at that time, and that was a fever. But like he said, he became so ill that he couldn't even communicate. So my son, who is a physician in California, he's an orthopedist, but he naturally had a lot more understanding than I did. He believed at the onset that this might be that new virus, COVID. And I said, well, okay. So I called the CDC of Missouri and talked with a registered nurse. And I told her the situation, all his symptoms, and she said, this was a Sunday when I finally reached her. And she said, no, he only has one symptom that we're seeing. Just keep watching him until tomorrow morning. And if he's not better, then call your primary care doctor and go from there. So that is what I did. but it was very frightening to watch my husband go downhill so quickly, and that I couldn't get into a clinic. I couldn't see a doctor. And so indeed, he was worse Monday morning. I called the primary at 6 a.m. and said, please help me. This is not going the right direction. And she immediately called and set up the earliest for him to go to a park where they were setting up COVID tents, where he would be given the test, through the nostril. And she said, and then I will make sure after that we have an ambulance called for you, because it looks like he's not getting better. So that indeed happened. They took the test. They said the results would not be back for 4 days. That's how it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I got home. He was very much non-responsive. My son had already told me that he thought that was probably because he didn't have enough oxygen, receiving much oxygen. He was very concerned, my son, and said he would call and make sure I got him into some hospital if I wasn't successful. But thank God, then about 1 o'clock that day on Monday, the ambulance came, and they said indeed that his oxygen level was only 60.
Wow.
And you have to go immediately to a physician if it's below 90.
Right.
So he was way below, and that's why he was unresponsive. And so then they wheeled him away, and I thought I could go with them, behind them in the car, so I could be there at the hospital. But the EMTs immediately said, no, you are not going anywhere. You cannot leave your house. A health official will be calling you. You can't leave, and you for sure cannot come to the hospital. And eventually today you'll find out the situation with your husband. So that was
mind-blowing, unbelievably devastating, frightening experience that basically transpired over the course of a week. You're sick for a week now. I think I was adding up the days.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days he was sick. But
amazing. Before he finally got into the hospital.
Yes. He had done flu tests on Friday outside. They came in outside of the hospital, or I should say the doctor's office. They came and administered flu tests to him. They all came back negative, but we didn't get that result until Sunday morning. So amazing. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Greg, how long were you intubated? Was it, in hindsight, the right decision to intubate you? Because that's become a big debate now in the early treatment of COVID.
Yeah, that's a question that I've been asked before as well. I was actually 32 to 35 days intubated. Then I went on a trach and was probably 10 days after that or so on the trach. Yeah, it was. I remember they gave me a call. I could barely talk, but I was in the emergency room, and my son called me and told me what it was like to be intubated. And then Sandy called, and all I could tell her is that I loved her, and that was, I think, my last words to her.
Wow.
I do think in my case, in retrospect, I think it was the right decision. My oxygen level was so low that getting me to any kind of level that would be acceptable would be a difficult time. So the intubation did help. I can tell you that I'm grateful for the emergency people that helped me. Very, very grateful for all of the personnel, because it was so unknown, Logan. It
was completely frightening. I mean, to go into a hospital setting and work with people as sick as you were, not knowing if they were going to get it, was an amazing act of love.
Exactly. I have such admiration for every one of those personnel that literally risked their lives. They didn't know what was happening. And I'm just so grateful to them, as I am grateful to God and my wife and my family. Yeah.
You bring up God. Faith is a big part of your story. Faith is your career. You work for the Assemblies of God, as I understand it. Tell us how you were sustained by your faith during this time of unbelievable suffering and unbelievable fear.
Well, the fact of the matter, I'll defer to Sandy.
Yeah.
I was sleeping.
I know.
I I was resting. I had like a Rip Van Winkle experience.
Amazing. Yeah, you wake up for it. Everybody else has been going out of their minds.
The world
Yeah.
changed. It was so. We can talk if we have time about waking up, but Sandy can tell you about sustainable faith.
Yeah. Talk to us about how your faith helped you.
Well, it was definitely one of the major roles in keeping me sane, and positive.
Mhm.
We've been married many years, and so we've been in missions work for a long time,
Mhm.
and we've seen God perform miracles in
Yes.
our lives and in our children's lives for many, many years. So when this crisis came, although it was probably, I would say, the worst, I knew to whom to go to. I didn't deny all of the heartache that was there and the ups and downs of COVID, and his condition did not improve for weeks. And it was usually one more situation that became a problem while he was in a coma. He had sepsis, he had blood clots, he was on dialysis, his kidneys failed. And so it was one day after the other of really despair, you might say. But that's why primarily the word of God sustained me, and knowing that I have a promise from the Bible that the Lord walks with me through every crisis. Good. And he certainly did this time in an amazing ways. Secondly, our family. My son, who's a physician, like I said, came immediately when he heard his father was intubated. He got on one of the last flights out of California to come and stay here. However, what made the situation worse during those days was I was not allowed to leave my home. I was not allowed to have any contact with anybody. And so everything had to be delivered to me. I wasn't even allowed to go to a store, they told me. So when he came, he couldn't stay with me. And I'm glad, because 4 days after he got COVID, I did, and I ended up in the hospital. So in as I look behind at the details, I'm so glad that he had to stay at a hospital. At a hotel across the street from the hospital where his dad was, so he could be close by. But he was never allowed to be anywhere within 6 feet of me. So those early days, when Greg was in the hospital, and Greg had just arrived, our son is Greg too, Greg Jr., we met in my garage, and we were 2 cars apart sitting. I never hugged him. I never got near to him all through the 2 weeks that he could be in Springfield. So family, however, was very important. California got so bad that they were closing all transportation flights to other places. So I begged him to go back home. They wouldn't even allow him in the room in the hospital wing anymore because of the increasing situation with deaths. So there was no reason for him to be here. So he set up a telephone situation, a chat for my daughter, who at that time was in Israel. They lived in Israel, she and her family. And so we had 3 or 4 times a day, it didn't matter how much, we had our family chats to discuss my husband's situation and what we should do, and should we make decisions and those kinds of things. And that sustained me. That truly sustained me. Yeah. Then, of course, the third most influential part of that was, as you already mentioned, people began to pray. People all over the world began to pray. Yeah. That made a huge difference. Our son started a Facebook post, and he posted sometimes twice a day about my husband's situation. Oh my goodness, it just caught on fire, and people from everywhere, strangers I never knew, pledged their prayers and their support. It was quite incredible. So even though I was totally alone in this house, all by myself, I knew that the prayers, the family, the friends, even the strangers who prayed, that sustained my every day. And I'm so grateful. I learned so much through it.
Amazing. You do see the good side of people when bad things happen, certainly. Yeah. And those prayers had to sustain you emotionally, and I think through divine intervention as well. Greg, we do almost out of time, but I do want to ask you about waking up, because I know the extubation part of being intubated is quite traumatic. And could determine whether you're able to breathe again on your own. So tell us what waking up was like from all of this.
So that was pretty crazy because after 2 weeks of being in Springfield, I was transported by helicopter in a coma, not knowing I was being transported to St. Louis to a hospital there. So when I was waking up, they had to get the right sedation formula to let me come out of that and to have my breathing begin to activate. And so it was very important that I didn't have COVID anymore. So they tested me twice. That was clear. And then they had to put a trach on me. And so that's when they woke me up. And when I was waking up, it was a surreal world for me because I didn't really realize that I had been in, or didn't remember I had been in the hospital. And so they asked me my name, which I was able to say, Greg, and they asked me my birth date, and I said that in October. Then they asked me where I was. Well, I gave them answers because I had been on a trip overseas. I had been in Madagascar, I had been in Paris, France, I've been in Amman, Jordan, and Stockholm, Sweden. And so they asked me where I was. I got very sick in Amman, Jordan, and was in the hospital because of food poisoning and on an IV. So I'm struggling through this cloud to figure out where I am. And I said Amman, Jordan, and that just set off all kinds of alarms.
Amazing.
So I didn't even know I was in St. Louis, right? So there's a big fog coming out of that. Grasping reality again.
Sure.
Was difficult. They arranged a call, FaceTime with my family, and I saw them on the phone, and I kept asking, "What's wrong with me? Why am I here? And where are you? Why aren't you with me?"
Yeah.
Because
They call it ICU delirium, I think, in many cases, where you literally become delirious from being deprived of sleep, not knowing if it's day or night, being grievously ill. It's an unbelievable story. We're glad you captured it in this book. We shouldn't forget how sick people were and what a horrible time COVID was, and how people of faith do come together in times of need. And we're glad you're okay. I mean, so many things could have gone wrong, but instead everything went right. And that's the best outcome that we can hope for, that we can pray for, that God can give us. The name of the book is Patient Number One, Embracing Hope in Times of Despair. It is a powerful, true account of endurance, faith, and the miracles found in life's most impossible moments. Sandra, Greg, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
God bless you. I appreciate your time and your insight and your candor. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.